Okay, I think we're live. Well, welcome. You'll probably watch this at a later date. I'm jumping in here to say hi and to start this conversation that's been like bursting through my being for, I think, a long time. Actually, I think many eons. And just welcome to the community. My name is Alashina Lightning. Alashina. I'll probably weave in my story as I talk. I don't like just dumping story on you. There's lots and lots of stories. I've been on a global shamanic journey of reclaiming my sexuality later in life. So there's a lot of great work being done in the gay community right now, which is really important. And I kind of want to just give you a frame of who my message is probably best for so that you're investing your time in the right place. This community and what I speak about and my message and my vibration and my frequency and my embodiment is for those who are in a process of awakening. Okay. And that's not for me to define what that really means. At the core of awakening, there's really a shift in identity. Right? There's a shift in who you're being, really who you experience yourself as, which ultimately affects, what you're doing in the world. So this is being filmed in October of 2020, the epic 2020 year. And as you know, we're in the middle of a pandemic, global pandemic. And many of us have been forced to isolate, to stay home, to quarantine, so and so. And I know from my own experience, and I know from those that I'm connected with, that this has been very challenging for gay men, specifically gay single men, because the truth is that the only place that the quote gay community has really given us has centered around drinking, right? Bars. And there's lots of other great things opening. There's other like outdoor groups and gay groups that do get together. If you're not connected to any of those, I suggest just searching your area for them. But right now, because of what's happening in the world, the pandemic has been a catalyst for what we call the Great Awakening. So a little thing about me is that I've been trained in the Q'ero tradition of South America. It's Andean shamanism. And essentially that path holds a prophecy of this great awakening that's happening on the planet right now, where the quote white man is waking up to save the planet. And you're seeing a lot of division and a lot of frustration and a lot of confusion and a lot of fear and manipulation of the media and all these things. But what that really means for us is that humanity has been put on pause, right? Humanity's had the opportunity to reflect on who we are and what we're doing. And why I'm here is to frame that conversation for what it means to be a gay man in the new paradigm. So I'm 41 now, and I came out when I was 33. Yeah, I was married. So here's a little bit of a story for you, those of you that don't know. I was raised Baptist, and I was actively gay as a child. Just I had my male cousins were some of my like deepest lovers, in the sense of very fun and play, and we were sexual together. I never knew what gay was. I remember hearing the word gay for the first time in my life when I was small, and it was really awful. But I never really I didn't have the supportive environment to understand who I was and to come out. My family's from West Virginia, so there was a lot of like incest and things like that. And that really happened in my life. But I don't remember any of it. I was with a lot of women as a young lad. And through that I met what I would call my soulmate. I met a soulmate, which there are infinite numbers of soulmates. But this soulmate was a very codependent relationship. I believe our souls brought us together to break us apart. So I married a woman, and we were married for 7 years. We almost had a child. We went through a really rough loss of a pregnancy. It's another short, tragic story. I try to bring lightness to the pain that I've been through, but I speak it because the truth is that many of us have been through a tremendous amount of pain, right? Like we've been through a tremendous amount. And one of the ways that I've healed from that is through grief work. Really, really profound. Some of the hardest work, but it's been the most healing, because we have an opportunity now to shed so much, right? So I'm going to finish my story before I start downloading more of this consciousness that I want to bring to you. So got married, I got on a shamanic path. I did all these for like almost a decade, did all these different spiritual teachings to become this spiritual healer and do all this soul work in the world. And the process of doing that work cracked me open. I was still married. There was a shamanic ceremony with sacred plant medicine. So I speak a lot about sacred plant medicines and really tried to educate people on how to use them for their own growth. Everything from CBD to cannabis to psilocybin to ayahuasca. All of these things are potent medicines that have been used for soul growth and self-realization for many, many years. And I would call myself an expert on these. Not would, but I do, because of my experience with them. But because of this path, it cracked me open, and I had a radical awakening. It happened in April 2012, where on a journey with psilocybin mushrooms, my identity that I knew, my quote, my heterosexual identity, it was just completely dissolved, and I saw all this pain happening in my life, and it was kind of a prophecy of the impact of those that would be affected from my decision to honor my truth. But I didn't realize how big it would be. I didn't realize really what would come, the storm that would come after that. It was also one of the most beautiful days of my life, because I remember looking in the mirror and just like holding my face, and I could see my spirit. I could see my spirit for the first time. I'm like my queer spirit, my gay spirit. And I remember just weeping in the mirror and just saying to myself, I've been looking for you my entire life. And so it was a beautiful day, also a really painful day that resulted in divorce. I left an 11-year corporate sales career to devote myself to personal growth and self-mastery and soul growth. I spent a lot of years in Peru. And through my own shamanic training, that's when I did the deepest work of like reclaiming my gay soul. And part of that, I had a gay shaman mentor down in Peru who, he just left the planet on Sunday. Kidney cancer. And amazing. It was like a DJ, spoke 9 languages. There's interviews with him on my YouTube channel. You can check that out on my website. And so I've had a lot of really great mentors along the way. And part of his devotion that really awoken in me, and part of my relationship with my wife at the time, was that I had this passion for the divine feminine, right? For this understanding of the divine feminine. And through my many different mystical experiences, I began to experience her in her radiance, like the embodiment of her in people, in the earth, in many different places. And that set alive in me the awakening of my own inner goddess. And I say that with absolute reverence, not some sense of like, candy, I'm being legit. And so while I was going through my coming out of my 30s, I also bartended at gay bars because it was a great way. I was in Baltimore. It was a great way for me to get to know the community. And, gay bars and that kind of party scene is only a fraction of really what the community is. So I'm not trying to say that's what it is. But one thing I did really see quite clearly, I was like, I might be a gay baby in the sense of my sexuality not being that developed, but I knew my soul was really old. I knew my soul was like eons old, and I could see the incredible pain in the community, right? And the solution to much of that has been a focus on partnership. So there are many groups on Facebook or online social media that do focus on partnership, and it's really beautiful. My path that I've guided myself and some amazing clients to partnership, the energetics are different. You probably get the sense of that as I speak. Like I see things at a soul level. I see things that, essentially where I see masculine, feminine dynamics really, really well. I'm not super into astrology, but hold on, I'm going to change this song here. I'm not super into astrology, but my Mars and my Venus are in the same house in Taurus, and everybody that reads my chart are just blown away by like Mars and Venus are the masculine and feminine, how like closely tied they are together. So the role of the shaman, and what I want to say is that if you're a gay man awakening, it's very likely that you're awakening to the shaman in you, right? This doesn't mean that you become a shaman or you do anything that, quote, shamans are known to do. but the gay men have always been two spirits. Okay, two spirit is a native term that some may argue cultural appropriation over, but that's not what I'm here to do. I have my guides. I have a grandfather who is a native Cherokee, and he guides me and speaks to me. My lineage is hardcore two spirit, and every lifetime I've been a two spirit. Two spirit is just a term for understanding we have literally both a presence of a masculine and feminine spirit within us, and which gives us spiritual gifts. It gives us spiritual capabilities. And it's that spiritual power, spiritual potential, energetic, the metaphysical, that I'm here to help activate in the gay community, right? And part of that is that we have not been given, and this is a blanket statement, right? This is not true for everyone, but we haven't really been given these models of gay masculinity that have been liberating, all right? If you all you have to do is turn on Netflix or try to find any movie that's about gay men that isn't steeped in pain, steeped in like self-loathing, that isn't steeped in like being a victim. There's a lot of like the portrayal or being addicts, right? It's like what I'm calling for and why this group exists is to activate the new leaders, right? Because to be a leader in your life, to be able to stand up and speak up and out and embody a higher frequency of your potential that's beyond anything that the gay community has given us. Now, I'm not trying to tear down anything that's happened in LGBTQ history because there's an incredible history, right? History is not my realm of genius. My realm of genius is the soul. Like I literally see where your soul is bound by your human nature, by shame and conditioning, limitation, or even what I would call the gay ego, the identity that has been given to us or offered to us by the gay community, right? I don't know if you can hear, but I have a little background music on. It helps me kind of stay in a meditative state, calm my nervous system. So if you haven't read the book, The Velvet Rage. So if you've actually read the book Velvet Rage by Dr. Alan Downs, just put a little like emoji or leave something down there if you're watching this later, because I'm going to teach you just really quickly why what he teaches in that book is so important and what that means for those of us that are on this journey here. So Dr. Alan Downs is basically a psychologist. All right, he's a psychologist that has worked with a lot of different gay men, and I've studied with him, studied his work, and he outlined 3 stages of coming out. So stage 1 is when you're basically in the closet. And this is when you're overwhelmed by shame, right? We all know what that is. Some of us, it was, 8 years. Some of us was 40 years or more. And then there's stage 2 is when you come out. But when you come out, you go and live like the gay life, but you're also, you're overcompensating, right? Because you kind of slingshot out of all that shame, you overcompensate. And you still haven't found your authentic identity. And this can look like, essentially it looks like the never-ending gay party scene. This looks like gay relationships that never work, right? This looks like, it's the Peter Pan syndrome where you never actually find the truth of who you really are, what makes you really happy, and build that authentic life. This group is to help you move people who are moving from stage 2 into stage 3, which is authenticity, right? Sounds like a mundane word. But authenticity is, there's a deep longing. I know that there's a deep longing in the soul for an authentic expression. And this looks different for everyone, right? Because we're all multifaceted, right? We each have like our own individuated expression of our feminine magic. Whether you do drag or not, it's totally your thing. We each have our own individuated, authentic expression of our masculinity, right? And then we have the fluidity of those. And this time right now with the pandemic, because everything's been put on like hold, has been an opportunity for many of us to just reflect on life, right? To be like, who am I if I can't go to the bar? Who am I if I don't go to the club? Who am I if I don't have these things, right? Interestingly enough, like through this process, it forced me to really, really look at my relationship to alcohol. I wasn't a daily drinker or anything like that, but I'd have a couple drinks, probably 4 or 5 nights a week. But I didn't like who I became, and I didn't like why I was drinking. And it was essentially just numbing out the work that I really needed to do, which was to go into my heart and face all the fears that I had been holding on to since childhood, to be who I am, to face those fears, to face the pain, so that my heart could open. And many men who are looking for things in their lives, it comes from really opening this heart. Okay? That is what is so amazing about gay men, is our hearts are just immeasurable. They really are. It's the capacity that we have to love. So many of us are just like, we're thirsty for touch, we're thirsty for love, we're thirsty for connection. And I know it's been a really hard time. So I've created this space because I want men to connect. I want men to feel okay to ask for support, right? To say, I'm not okay today. All those things, because I may stand up here as a guide, but I'm not immune to these things. I work out on a daily basis because that's the best therapy for me, being in my body and working out old pain, old abuse from childhood. I am a survivor, or whatever you want. I'm a survivor, thriver. I hate the word, right? Actually, what I prefer is initiate, right? I was initiated into sexual abuse. I was abused by my father as a young child. So I talk about it. Sometimes I'm real open about it. Sometimes I just don't want to talk about it. But I'd like to mention it because I have no shame around it anymore. That shit just tore me up for a long time. The only thing I'm still dealing with is just I'm moving stuff out of my fascia in my body. So I'm a yoga teacher. I not currently teaching, but yoga has been a big path of mine to work things out of the body. So yeah, this is an opportunity to look at why you don't have the things in your life that you don't have. And there's two books that I like to share, just like that are references, that are resources that anybody that ever works with me has to read these books. And they're the first one I mentioned to you is Dr. Alan Downs, The Velvet Rage, because he to hear from a psychologist the outline of the transgression out of the shadows, essentially into authenticity. And the other powerful book that I recommend is written by a men's psychologist. It's not specifically about gay men. It's just for men. It's called No More Mr. Nice Guy. No More Mr. Nice Guy. And No More Mr. Nice Guy basically is identifying how the New Age spirituality movement has caused men to be over feminized, right? To be in our softness, to deny our primal nature, to deny our rage, to deny our truth, to walk on eggshells around other people. And when you just read or even listen to one of his podcasts, interviews, you start to trace back how all these things started for you, right? Like how, because as a child, you didn't want to, you wanted mom or dad's approval or the tribe's approval or whatever. And then with the manipulation of the self, the manipulation of your own spirit began to happen. But the truth is that in order for us to create the momentum to have the things in life we want, we have to break that pattern of trying to please other people. We have to stand in the tension of other people's uncomfortableness in our energy field and stand in our truth and speak our truth, right? And that's why doing this work to get into the heart is really, 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 really important. So the new gay masculine, my path of awakening has centered around totally recalibrating my understanding of the masculine, right? So because I had an abusive father, my father was very wounded. I'm pretty sure my father's closeted as well. I only understood a very broken understanding of the masculine. Even all the work, since 2010, I've been doing all this men's work or like men's retreats works, things like this. And I've been doing all this work. But I had never experienced truly in my field, like in my real experience, the frequency of a high masculine man, the frequency of the high masculine. And that's what I'm bringing to you, is what I help recalibrate people to, is the felt frequency of a high caliber masculine energy. And the masculine energy is the provider, the protector, is the provision energy, right? He is the one that sees all that you don't see, while your feminine, is living in the desires for your life, right? And there's lots I talk around. My wizardry is around consciousness, right? So dissecting where you're living in what we call the swamp. The swamp is when you're essentially living in victimhood. You're stuck in child psychology, right? This is essentially where 90% of gay relationships are, right? They don't actually ever come into the mature consciousness. They don't actually come into mature archetypal structures. And that's what it needs to happen, right? And that's why shamans have always existed. Shamans are the initiators, right? That's the archetype of the shaman. The shaman is the archetype of initiation. So gay men need to go through initiation of some sort, self-initiated with a guide, however, of some sort, to initiate in their psyche the dissolving of it's a dissolving of the boy psychology, but you don't lose it. It actually comes into a different light, right? So it's not to say like stop doing these things and become this. It's that we recognize we're deeply thirsty for true masculinity, like in ourselves, deeply want to feel masculine in ourselves, and deeply want to feel the love for the masculine in another being. And that first starts and happens. The way I help men create relationships that they want is they basically create this felt sense in their field, is to activate that and to calibrate to a different frequency of masculine in your field that you've never felt before. And that can initiate a profound spiritual awakening, because anxiety and depression, many mental health issues can begin to lift and shift when you begin this journey of activating your consciousness, of alchemizing insecurities, of alchemizing essentially just lies, right? What some might call shadow. Right, so shadow work is super important in the shaman conversation, because shadow is just the unrepressed or unexpressed parts of you. You know, essentially that's a lot of that is your feminine magic that wants to come out to play. And she's just hiding in the shadows for whatever reasons. The main reason is because she doesn't feel, right? So I just want you to feel this in your body as I'm saying this. She doesn't feel safe to fully come out as herself, right? She's looking for a stage to make her feel safe. She's looking for a boyfriend to make her feel safe. She's looking for a network of friends that aren't super bitchy to make her feel safe. And the truth is, the only thing that will ever make her feel safe is that experience within, is that she turns her allegiance away from the wimpy fucker, which is like that's the immature masculine that you have in your system. And she turns her allegiance over to the high masculine, when she recognizes there is a masculine frequency within her, that she doesn't need anyone else's sense of safety or approval, that she feels that within, because no one, no thing has any power over her, and she can stand in her fucking magic and her fucking glory, and she can be as flamboyant, as bitchy, as cold-hearted, as expressive that she wants to be. And it doesn't matter what other people think. And I ultimately feel that is what every man wants. Every man that I've ever met in this gay, queer questioning conversation is the balls to be who they truly are while not caring what other people think. And there's nuances to this when I begin to teach you and coach you or guide you and show you the energetics of how you've basically plugged, the metaphor of your light socket. So basically there's a power plug inside of you that like shoots out of your root, that you've taken that power plug and you've plugged it into other places. You've plugged it into the gay community. You've plugged it into your boyfriend. You've plugged it into a past boyfriend. You've plugged it into your mom. And what we have to do is we have to unplug all of those power sources and root them into you. Root them into you and root them into a different understanding of the masculine, so that when you in your own individuated existence feel completely safe to be who you are, right? And not care what other people think. And that is the first step to having the relationships that you want. Platonic, friendships, being able to, like, what's happened for me over this past pandemic and just going deep into myself is that I now can have relationships with women on levels I've never been able to have before. And their feminine is coming out to play, and it's just really juicy. And we get to play in that field. Like, I really love playing in the feminine frequencies with other women. That's shifted. I'm currently not seeing anyone intentionally because truth be told, I've been healing a lot of old sexual trauma from my pelvis area and from basically my whole sexual area. I've just been purging trauma out of my system. So my last relationship was 2 summers ago, actually. So I've taken off a couple years because I wanted to dive deep into the things that were inside of me that were holding me back, right? And those of us that have experienced, my journey is quite unique of dealing with sexual abuse. So like I have my sexuality moves slow, right? She moves slow until she knows like exactly what's in her field. And when I first came out, I was, I dated and had lots of different sexual experiences, but I quickly learned, I had to go through a boy phase, but I quickly learned what it was like. I had to grow part of myself up, but I quickly learned, I was like, there's much higher capacity. There's a much higher frequency of what I want. I don't want this drama. Like, I don't want there to be this attachment. There needs to be my own individuated life, that I live my life and I do what I want, or with complete honesty with you, and you live your life and you do what you want. And there's no attachment. Like, we're actually in this because we want to play a beautiful game of love together, a game of love and adoration. And however you structure a relationship, that's completely your own, whether you do open or whether you're devoted. I've always been a devotional being. That's just my nature. And that's how I'm wired, and I know what I want. And so when I take people through the process of manifesting an ideal partner, that's one thing we identify, is we get clear, like, what is your makeup? Like, what do you really want, And essentially what we're doing in this entire journey is we're looking at fear of intimacy. Right? You'd be surprised. Like, of course, a lot of men just like want that connection, sexual connection, but an intimate connection, it's very different than a sexual connection. And that's this stage of moving out of stage 2, like overcompensating for shame, into authenticity. Because this journey, when you're awakening spiritually and you're awakening to energetics, and you realize you're a very sensitive soul, and you're an empath, and you can feel other people's frequencies, the old games of like getting drunk and having one night stands, they don't fill you up anymore, right? They literally aren't fun. And you want something much deeper. Even having intimate conversation can be a huge turn on, eye gazing can be a huge fucking turn on. So there's a lot of different tender things that can happen. And so I'm trained in Tantra, Tantra is kind of an abused word, but it's really the art of energetic intimacy, right? The art of having deeper intimacy, which comes from deeper intimacy with your feminine, with your true desires. So I feel like this transmission is complete, actually, and it's been about almost a half hour. So I just want to send you some love, and I'll be dropping links. You're welcome to invite some men in here that might resonate. And I've got several ideas for things that I want to bring to offer, as things that will be fun together, things that some of them are very intro level that many people can afford. And then some of my deepest offerings are a little bit more of an investment. So if you are interested in support, you know how to reach me. You just PM me and we'll set up a conversation. And I'm holding the vision for this space to activate and birth powerful gay leaders. And whatever that means to you, this could be a leader in your life. This could be a leader for your family. This could be a leader in the world publicly, in the public eye. It doesn't matter. But saying that you are ready to do the work, to master the emotions that have kept you in dark places or in shadows, and to let go of addictions, and to really devote yourself to health and wellness, and devote yourself to a purpose and what I call legacy. I like to say, what is your queer legacy? What is the legacy that you're here to leave? What is the legacy that you're here to inspire? Those are the powerful questions that I'd like to leave you with today. So I'll talk to you soon.